In a world where relationship struggles seem increasingly common, ancient Vedic wisdom offers a revolutionary perspective on achieving lasting happiness and genuine connection. This profound exploration reveals why traditional approaches to improving relationships often fail and presents a transformative path forward through developing our inner life. By understanding the fundamental differences between male and female nature, shifting from demanding love to giving service, and cultivating spiritual consciousness, we can create deep and meaningful relationships that transcend surface-level interactions. This lecture provides practical insights into how we can move beyond quick fixes to achieve genuine harmony in our relationships while mastering the art of conscious living. Just a minute before starting this lecture, I was reflecting on why people come to these events: to address pressing questions, significant life challenges. Some of these are questions connected to one's fate. That's why such great responsibility rests on all of us, not just me, because the depth and sincerity of our interaction will directly determine the quality of the outcomes we achieve together. This is the foundation of Vedic culture, which is built on respect, trust, and love. Of course, during a first encounter there may be some doubt, but the culture of these interactions is fundamentally rooted in trust and respect. Gradually, this helps resolve issues and build understanding. Our discussion will unfold in a somewhat spontaneous atmosphere. From time to time I may sing, because love, after all, involves expressing emotions. It opens the subject deeper, creating a richer experience. That's the style I've naturally developed over many years of giving lectures. Interestingly, when I first began, my lectures were very different. They were less like lectures and more like one-on-one conversations. I'd look at someone and say, for example, "You're doing this, and that's why this happens in your life." And half the listeners would leave. Over time, I realized that this was because my heart was rigid. It didn't truly love people. I was focused on pointing out flaws in others while being a walking flaw myself. But as time goes on, my understanding of life evolves, and so does my approach to giving lectures. Let's begin by establishing the framework for our discussion. This is ancient Vedic knowledge. I'll be speaking in this language because it differs significantly from modern psychological approaches. The differences are substantial because contemporary understanding of personal issues primarily focuses on behavior. The idea is that you can change your fate by altering how you behave. In contrast, Vedic knowledge offers an entirely different perspective. It says that adjusting behavior is futile. It won't work. You can try one way, then another, and still struggle. The real issue lies in deeper layers, those that form before relationships even begin. That's why the Vedas emphasize that the most crucial and effective way to change your life is through the pursuit of truth. You must grasp profound truths, then internalize them in your spiritual practice, whether through prayer, introspection, or alignment. Once internalized, these truths will naturally manifest in your relationships. For example, someone might make a grand impression as a pianist with a stunning piano and a charming smile during the performance. That's behavior. But if they haven't practiced before the concert, they won't truly delight the listeners. Why? Because it's the inner qualities, not surface-level actions, that determine meaningful connections with the listeners. It's not about the ability to make an impression. The same principle applies to personal life. There's no difference. There are deeper aspects that we must embody. Without them, there won't be any meaningful results. The Vedas, this ancient knowledge, were recorded about 5,000 years ago by the great sage Vyasadeva. He had 4 primary disciples to whom he imparted this knowledge. They, in turn, passed it on to their own students, which eventually reached us through an extensive collection of scriptures. These texts are highly structured and written in Sanskrit, a language recognized as one of the most complex in the world. There's no need to delve into its complexities now. What's important to understand is that this isn't the folklore of primitive tribes running with spears, uttering incomprehensible sounds. These scriptures were crafted by highly intellectual individuals. Even today, few can master Sanskrit due to its intricate grammar and structure. Take the Mahabharata, for example, a great historical narrative compiled by Vyasadeva. It was composed in flawless verse, something that is now impossible to replicate in Sanskrit. No modern writer could impart knowledge with the same intellectual depth and poetic brilliance as those ancient sages. Therefore, my first assertion is this: they are worthy of the utmost respect, these individuals who gave us this wisdom. The foundation of the material I'm going to present today is based on the idea that there's a much deeper understanding of oneself. According to the Vedas, every individual relates to themselves from 3 perspectives. The first perspective is quite common: I am Dr. Torsunov. I'm 47 years old. I'm married. I have a resilient personality, steadfast character, and so on. This is the bodily identification. The second perspective of self-assessment. I am a disciple of my spiritual teacher. Victor, for instance, is not merely a doctor to me, but a close companion who has faithfully supported me for many years. I hold deep affection for him. This represents a different outlook on life. This second perspective is incredibly valuable. It's important to know that adopting this perspective changes everything. It changes everything in our lives, for example. What kind of beauty should a woman aspire to in the second approach? Inner beauty. Because if you live on this deeper platform, and let's say you're choosing a wife, her outward appearance becomes less important. It matters, but it's not the main thing. It's secondary. It's crucial to understand this. Most people live on this external platform of life, and they try to solve their problems accordingly. But the Vedas teach us that problems cannot be solved on this superficial level, because there is something called inner life. Therefore, there's the physical body, the subtle energy body or psyche, and the soul. The soul, that's me. Do you see me as a soul? Let me explain. If you saw me as a soul, you'd feel paralyzed, your hair would stand on end, chills would run through your body, and you'd experience an emotion beyond anything this earth can provide, because the soul is imbued with astonishing qualities. It is extraordinary by nature, as the Vedas describe. All of us are amazing, but we don't know ourselves as such. And because we don't know this, we act accordingly. Like in the joke where the rabbit hops over to the frog and says, "Why are you so green?" The frog replies, "I'm just sick. Actually, I'm white, soft and fluffy, but because I'm sick, I'm green and smelly." In that moment, the rabbit saw her true self as a soul. We first need to understand ourselves in this way, because our current existence is only temporary. The body we inhabit reflects our desires and actions. The Vedas explain that the subtle energy body, or the psyche, creates the physical body. Can you imagine? It's fascinating to know that within the subtle energy body there are specific energy channels called srotas. Interestingly, the subtle energy body doesn't die. It enters the anatomical structure at conception when the sperm fertilizes the egg. During fertilization, the subtle energy body and the soul merge into this structure, infusing it with life force and starting the process of development from within. So who is the mother? She's the environment. The mother doesn't grow the baby grows itself within that environment. The process follows a blueprint that's encoded within the baby. This blueprint is shaped by the individual's past actions and desires. Now, this might sound shocking, but hear me out. For example, if someone's desires were purely about enjoying pleasures, like indulging in sensual gratification, living in comfort, or eating well, then the human body isn't the best fit for that, because the human body is not designed for maximum sensory indulgence. For instance, a cat's body is much better suited to experiencing physical comfort than a human's body. A pig, for example, experiences 1,000 times more pleasure from eating than a human does. Don't believe me? Look into a pig's eyes when it's eating. They roll back with sheer bliss. Pigs experience immense happiness from eating. They can eat significantly more than humans, for longer durations, and without digestive issues. A bear sleeps better and longer, up to 6 months at a time. Try sleeping for 6 months as a human. You can't. Monkeys engage in sexual activity up to 5 times a day, with each session lasting about an hour, bringing immense satisfaction. I witnessed this during my studies in India. In an antelope's body, you could run much faster and more efficiently than in a human body. An eagle's eyesight is 1,000 times sharper than ours. From 2 kilometers away, it can spot a tiny insect. If you want to enjoy swimming, a dolphin's body is ideal. No amount of human diving equipment can replicate how naturally and gracefully a dolphin moves in water. So there are various forms of bodies in this world. The subtle energy body, also known as the desire body, or linga sharira in Sanskrit, determines the nature of each form we take. This desire body exists to fulfill our wishes in every life. The Vedas state that we live through many lives, each serving a purpose based on our desires. For instance, if someone feels exhausted by life, they can rest as a tree. Trees simply stand there resting. Before moving on to their next experience, each life is dictated by the desires we harbor. The Vedas clarify that human life is not designed for material or familial happiness. Animals experience these joys far more intensely and naturally than humans. For example, animals have innate loyalty within their nature. Swans are incredibly faithful. If one dies, the other soon follows, unable to live without their partner. Imagine such devotion. Swans do not face the relationship issues we encounter as humans. We do. Human life is not intended for personal happiness. Instead, the human body is designed for understanding the higher truth. The higher truth is that we possess a subtle energy body that does not perish, and we must learn to recognize this. I don't die. Death does not exist. I am the subtle energy body, not the physical body, so I don't die. Why do we fear death? Because we don't understand the existence of the subtle energy body. If we knew about it, there would be nothing to fear. What's there to fear if I never truly die? The physical body is constantly changing. Whose body doesn't change? Everyone's does, so why are we so attached to it? It's always changing. Recently, I looked at an old photo of myself, a little boy standing without pants, holding a piece of sausage. I was wearing a cap and a tie, but no pants. I don't even recognize that little child as me. I was 4 years old in that picture, and I look nothing like that now. Even 15 years ago, during my first lecture in Riga, I looked completely different, not like I do now. Isn't that true? Were any of you at my first lecture? The body constantly changes, but I remain the same. I can't say someone else lived in this body, it's always been me. Similarly, the Vedas state, I remain the same in my subtle energy body and then I enter a new body. It's the same process. I enter with the qualities and experiences I've accumulated in my previous life. Human life is meant for happiness, but because we chase after the wrong things, we remain unhappy. The Vedas teach that the subtle energy body thrives most when we cultivate an inner life. This means disengaging from distractions like TV and turning our attention to reading meaningful books. And then forgive instead of goodbye. Like in the song, I'll say this time so the dawn doesn't fade, I'll say this time. They start to think, to repent for what happened, and to wish for happiness. They begin to do something meaningful within themselves. This internal work is incredibly valuable because we're constantly trying to prove to others that we're good. But honestly, it's a futile effort. It never works because people already know who we really are, whether we prove it or not. Proving it makes no difference. The Vedas explain that right now, as you're looking at me, there are 3 types of perceptions you have of me as a person. The first type, glasses, baldness, shirt. The second type of perception, logic. What I'm saying, does it make sense or not? The third type of perception is very deep and hard to explain. This is whether you feel someone is genuine. Do they truly live the way they speak? Are they truthful? This third type is the most important and the hardest to describe. It stems from the soul, not just the subtle energy body. Logic comes from the subtle energy body. Logic, thoughts, emotions, these are functions of the subtle energy body. But the soul seeks only truth, love, authenticity, and meaningful things of depth and value. When someone speaks very logically and scientifically but is just showing off, the soul says, I don't want to listen to this. They may argue, look, it's all scientific, very informative. You'll learn how to act correctly. But the soul says, I can't listen anymore, I feel sleepy. The soul disengages because there's no life in those words. Life is not merely the activity of the mind or the body. For example, we might say, let's go relax a bit, there's no life here, just work. But life is not simply physical activity. Or we say, let's go dance, there's no life here, just work. Yet even dancing isn't the activity of the subtle energy body. So what is life? Life is the activity of the soul. It involves profound and genuine relationships which are incredibly hard to achieve. To cultivate these inner connections, you must work diligently every day, starting fresh each morning. This is important to understand because inner relationships provide the deepest satisfaction to a person. These relationships are divine in nature. They aren't built on sweet talk. For example, let's say you decide to address the issue of inner relationships. You sit your spouse down and say, let's talk. Dr. Torsunov says we need inner connections. We've never had real inner connections. How does such an intimate conversation typically end? With pain? Because the pain that existed inside doesn't disappear, it comes out. Since you didn't have inner relationships before, bringing things to the surface results in hurt. This happens because most people do not live an inner life. Instead, they run away from it, using TV, books, and music as distractions. These things are not meant to bring you closer to yourself. They're designed to help you avoid confronting your inner self. There are 2 types of activities. The first is about entertaining yourself, or more accurately, distracting yourself from what's inside. The second type of activity focuses directly inward. It requires distancing yourself from TV, books, and other distractions to begin understanding yourself on a deeper level. The activity of understanding yourself is unique. It addresses every issue you might face. This discussion will focus specifically on that activity. Before diving into that, let's go over some theory. The first point I want to make is the subtle energy body has 3 main characteristics. The first is the mind. The mind is where all the activity of the subtle energy body occurs. Within the subtle energy body, there are senses. The senses are how we engage with the world around us. They are literally how we connect. When I look at you, it's not just the way modern scientists explain it, light hitting your image and reflecting on my retina to create a visual representation. The Vedas have a different perspective. They say that when I look at you, my subtle energy body connects and exchanges energy with you. In essence, when we look at each other, our energies mix. Your mood influences me, and my mood influences you. That's how we deeply interact. It's not just a mechanical process where light hits, reflects, and creates reflections, or doesn't if there's no reflection. When we exchange looks, it can have a profound impact. A glance or sound can have a powerful effect depending on the closeness of our relationship. This means the subtle energy body can interact over a distance or penetrate deeply into another's being when the connection is strong and close. The mind, therefore, is a subtle structure, a framework on which all our life functions depend. For example, the mind oversees all the functions of the physical body, including the energy channels, srotas. These are subtle energy channels that regulate all the functions of our body. We don't consciously track what happens to the food we eat. Most people aren't interested because when the time comes, we just know where we need to go. We're unaware of the intermediate processes. We don't know how food is absorbed into our cells, how it moves through the intestines, or what happens at each step. What we do know is when we're hungry or need something else. All of this is managed by the subtle energy body. We're equally ignorant about the subtle energy body itself. We know that we need love. Some might say, Dr. Torsunov, I need love and a relationship with my husband. Why are you talking about theories that don't seem relevant to my life? Let's dig into a bit of theory for now. The key idea is this. We need to understand how the subtle energy body works because that's the foundation for everything else. There are 5 senses. The subtle energy body has 5 senses. Each sense functions differently. For example, the sense of hearing is directly connected to intelligence. Intelligence is a higher, subtle structure that governs our fate. The development of this structure, intelligence, determines our entire fate. Hearing connects first to intelligence and then to the mind. Primarily, it's through intelligence. This means sound can change a person's fate. As the saying goes, you become like those you surround yourself with. This isn't just about being in a classroom, taking notes, and leaving. It refers to deep, close relationships. Deep listening, where you open your heart and genuinely want to understand, changes your fate. If you're listening passively, thinking, oh, they're saying something, then nothing will change. Things will stay as they are. Listening is a powerful tool. It's crucial to know who you're listening to. People are often indiscriminate in their listening. We turn on the TV, flip through the channels, and think, oh, let's listen to this person. But we don't know this person. We have no idea what kind of life they've lived or who they really are. Yet the sound they produce can change our fate, especially if we listen intently and seriously. As the song says, someone told someone some important words. And just like that, life changed. Words were spoken, and life was different. For that change to happen, you must believe. But if you believe the wrong person, then the story changes. Another song comes to mind. I believed, and then nothing happened. The gardens bloom only once a year, meaning that person was gone. You see, sound is crucial. Faith, this word faith, is closely tied to sound. Faith doesn't come just from reading something. Let's talk about sight. Sight is connected to the mind. You can see a person's fate in their eyes, whether they're going through a good or bad period in life, whether their mindset is right or wrong, whether they'll interact with you positively or negatively, whether they're in a good mood or a bad one, whether they're healthy or sick, whether they're blessed with good fortune or weighed down by tough fate. You can see it all in their eyes. And if you want to look deeper, you can see much more in someone's eyes. As the song says, I see the sunrise in your eyes. I hear birds singing in your words. The sun's rays leave traces of your smile. You bring me the sunrise. Seeing the sunrise in someone's eyes, that's a spiritual kind of vision. It's a deeper way of perceiving. You bring me the sunrise. This deeper ability to see is rooted in faith. For example, when 2 people fall in love, they develop faith in each other, a spontaneous kind of faith. Faith is a serious matter. If that faith arises spontaneously, then the results are also spontaneous. Some people claim that love should come from the heart, while others argue that love should be guided by intelligence. So who's right? They say love should come from the heart. Okay, let me offer you an example of loving from the heart. Like in the song, Oh Mother, I spent the whole day sledding. I met Nick, and now I'm heartbroken. Oh Mother, why? That's loving from the heart. Now the second option, loving with intelligence, isn't the best approach either. So here's a better suggestion. Love with your heart, guided by your intelligence. But to do that, you need to be a person of wisdom. It's not simple. Let's first understand what intelligence really is. For example, the sense of hearing is connected to intelligence, while the sense of sight is connected to the mind. The sense of touch, however, is connected to both the mind and intelligence. It plays a crucial role in our lives. This is why we don't want to touch just anyone. We don't want to touch alcoholics, nor do we like eating with dirty hands. Even if we know we won't get sick, it feels unpleasant. This tactile sense is deeply linked to intelligence. For instance, we don't want to wear dirty clothes if we're sensible people. When someone stops caring about their appearance or hygiene, it's often a sign that they've lost touch with themselves. We say they've given up on life. You'll notice they don't wash themselves. This shows just how closely the sense of touch is tied to intelligence. Next is the sense of taste, which is connected to subtle energy. A person who knows how to choose what to eat has more energy. If they don't, they have less. For example, I remember serving in the army, where they fed us whatever they had. The main dish was lard and porridge, either porridge with lard or lard with porridge, depending on the proportions. I constantly felt drowsy. I had no energy. I'd walk around, and my strength was gone. Sometimes, while standing at attention, I'd feel myself nodding off, even standing upright. And it wasn't because I wasn't getting enough sleep. We slept fine. I just didn't have any energy because we ate by the clock. You sit at the table and the clock starts ticking. To this day, I can't get used to eating slowly. It's been so many years. We learned to finish an entire meal in 5-7 minutes. Imagine how bad that food was digested. The sense of taste is connected to subtle energy. And energy can be either positive or negative. If a person eats positive food, they'll have positive energy. But if they eat negative food, their energy will be negative. So what food is positive and what food is negative? That's your homework. You'll figure it out on your own because it's a sensitive topic. I won't discuss it now, or we'll stray from the main subject. There's a Vedic science called Prashna. It describes how, whenever something truly important is said, there's always confirmation, like a sneeze, a cough, something dropping to the floor, a sudden noise, or a siren from the street. During a lecture, when something significant is said, we'll notice how this works. The Lord provides confirmation through sudden sounds or events in the room. For example, I was talking about raising children in one of my recent lectures, and when I reached a critical point, an important idea I wasn't sure how to express, and I finally said it, there was a dead silence in the hall. You see, understanding depends on the inner state of the listener. During that silence, a small child sitting in the back with his mother let out a loud cry. He must have been about 7 or 8 months old. It wasn't just a cry, it was a deep, heartfelt sound, as if he felt that what I said was truly on point. Immediately the atmosphere shifted. The child confirmed the truth of the statement. Because a small child doesn't consciously understand what's happening externally, but they feel. That third type of listening, the deepest level, is strongest in them. They instinctively know what's true and who to listen to. That's why raising children is pointless if you don't live your own life honestly. If you yourself aren't living rightly, if you're not honest, your child will mirror that behavior. You can't explain it to them, it simply won't work. If you don't lead an inner life, if there's no foundation to your existence, you'll also fail to raise your children properly. That's how it works. Now, the sense of smell is the most surface-level sense, and it's connected to the physical body. It's supposed to work together with the sense of touch when something strongly impacts the physical body. For example, before eating something, we should smell it. If the food is toxic or spoiled, the smell will immediately reveal it. Taste, however, may not. This is because taste is closely tied to mental activity. If someone likes a dish, they might eat half of it before realizing it's slightly off, when in fact it could be seriously spoiled. The sense of taste doesn't always give us accurate information, but the sense of smell does. All animals first smell food, then eat it, because they don't know food by its name. They don't understand by name, they don't completely trust what they see. Maybe it's not what it seems. They smell first, then eat. And we first eat, then smell. Why? Because sometimes something wrong may happen, then we smell it. Can we really eat this? According to the Vedas, even humans should first smell, then eat. I conducted such experiments. I have a friend who breeds cobras. He showed me cobra venom crystals. I asked, do they have a smell? I was studying the smell. He said, they have no smell. These crystals, the amount of crystals he showed me could kill 10,000 people. He had a small bowl of them. He was collecting cobra venom. These white crystals without smell can kill 10,000 people. I took and smelled them. I sensed the smell of death. If you ask me what death smells like, what cobra venom smells like, I'll explain it to you now. When I smelled the cobra venom, my heart froze in my chest. I froze in amazement. A chill ran through my entire body. My eyes widened. And then all night I dreamed of a cobra standing in front of me right before my eyes. That's how cobra venom smells. Do you understand what kind of smell it is? In smell, the internal characteristic is important. You understand? That means it doesn't matter if it's sweet or sour. What matters is the danger that can be in the smell. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Moreover, even if a person has no sense of smell, if they smell something with a stuffy nose, they will still feel the danger from the product. So we are talking about senses. What are senses? Are eyes a sense or not? No, eyes are a sense organ, but senses belong to the subtle energy body. When the physical body dies, do the eyes die or remain? The eyes die, but the subtle vision remains. I've seen this with my own eyes because I can see the subtle energy body. I saw how a person left their physical body. An acquaintance of mine left his body before my eyes. He left his subtle energy body and became aware of himself being outside of his physical body. I saw this with my own eyes. He began to see everything that was happening around. So the sense of sight, hearing, touch, smell, these are subtle things. They belong to the mind. They don't die. They remain with the person. As the song goes, the song stays with the person. The song won't part with you. The same can be said about senses. Is it clear? If it's clear, let's talk about intelligence. So what's there in the mind? A bit more about the mind. The most important thing in the mind is here, in the heart area. It's like a small ball. I see it as a sphere. I perceive it as a sphere. I have been studying the science of the subtle energy body for many years. In order to heal people, I need to take about 20 subtle indicators from a person, which are impossible to measure by any means. These indicators determine a person's constitution during treatment. If I make a mistake in one of the indicators, the treatment won't help the person. In order to heal, I need to take the same subtle indicators from trees, branches, bark, stones that I use. I must match the person with the bark, with the trees. I must apply everything correctly so that it works right. It's the most subtle knowledge. All diseases are in the subtle energy body. There are subtle energy channels that are responsible for a person's health. Our body is sometimes compared to a city. In the city, there are highways. These highways in Ayurveda are called dhatu. These are energy layers in our body, like a nesting doll, one dhatu inside another. They conduct energy between various organs and systems. In every person, these subtle energy channels get blocked during life. Moreover, there are 4 channels that get blocked in everybody more than all other channels. These 4 channels give 4 types of chronic diseases in the body. I need to test everything and then use the bark that will remove these energetic blockages from the channels in the body. This process takes several months. The person gradually gets rid of the chronic disease that cannot be cured in the usual way. You understand? Such interesting medicine. My research confirms the Vedas. That means I conduct research based on them. All this is confirmed by science. Let's say I determined a person's constitution. There are 3 types of subtle constitution. Let's say I made a mistake. We use the bark of a branch and the person starts feeling bad. I look for the error. I see. I determined the constitution incorrectly. We change it, and they start feeling better. That means this is a very precise, practical science. It always works. When there's a mistake, it's visible. This is science. This means that the subtle energy body exists, it works, it has its own laws. Just as I perceive these constitutions, I also perceive what's here inside a person. It's described in the Vedas. There's such a structure, an energy sphere inside which the soul resides. This sphere carries information about all our past lives. The most important thing in this information is what actions we performed, what we wanted, what we did, how we thought. These are the actions we performed in past lives. They serve as our passport in this life, meaning we will be punished according to this passport. You understand? Fate will give us its tests according to what's there inside this sphere. This can be called deep memory. The law of karma comes from there. What kind of law is it? The law of cause and effect. We performed certain actions in past lives. Now we are answering for them. Happiness and suffering come into our life from there, from within. From this perspective, nothing can be changed. There's another important point. This point is connected with intelligence. The Vedas explain that depending on the direction of intelligence, a person and their fate change. A person's fate changes. As in the song, "Ask strict life which road to take. Where in this wide world to head in the morning? Follow the sun, though this path is unknown. Go, my friend, always follow the path of goodness." It turns out there are different paths. The Vedas describe 4 main paths. All people live and follow these 4 paths. The first path is called the path of degradation. This is a path where a person lives only for themselves. They say, "I live for myself. I will live as I want to. Don't touch me. Leave me alone. I don't care about others. I know nothing." As the saying goes, I don't care, I'm tired of fighting, I don't care about others, I know nothing. Well, maybe not in this case, but at least there is such a life position. A person lives for themselves, loves no one because everyone interferes with their happiness. You understand? People don't like such a position. When someone lives for themselves, it's unpleasant, and therefore such a person fights with everyone. They're hostile. Allegorically, in ancient tales, it is said that a person who follows this path loses themselves. That means they degrade. In Vedic language, they degrade. For example, we studied with someone together, let's say in school. Many years have passed, we meet them, and we see they have completely degraded. They've become an alcoholic, they don't understand anything, their behavior has completely changed, right? This is called degradation, the path of ignorance. The second path is the path of passion. A person also lives for themselves, but hides this fact from themselves. Such people tell everyone that they live for others, that they do everything for you, but in reality they live for themselves, but don't know about it, don't fully realize it. People in passion constantly play some roles. They play the role of successful people. For this, you need to dress stylishly, walk with a briefcase, and smile at everyone, or let's say, the role of a military person. For this, they need to have a very tough appearance. You understand? They play someone tough. For example, if some repeat offender or some suicide bomber comes to them, they won't be able to play this game anymore. Like recently, a year ago, there was an explosion at the airport in Moscow. There was such smoke after the explosion. One policeman jumped out of it and screamed wildly. Instead of behaving like a policeman, saving people, he yelled, "I'm alive!" and ran away. So you see, the police uniform sort of came off him at that moment. That means that his toughness disappeared, and he simply became a person who remained alive. You see, we play different roles, for example, respectable directors, candidates for doctorate degrees, and some other respectable roles. That means that we play different roles. This is called passion. That means that people, depending on what's needed, they change roles. But these are all superficial things. It's just a game. There's no depth in all of this. People in passion also can't build normal family relationships. People in degradation don't have a family at all. Even if a person lives with someone in degradation, they don't live as a family. They just suffer with them. Why? Because a person in degradation doesn't care. They're not interested in anything. They often drink. Like in the poem, we banditos, gangsteritos, quilanto, and chutanto keep miliona in the banca and don't care about the laws. English language performed by Italians. Well, never mind. The important thing is that the person doesn't care about anything. They might not be a bandit, but they just don't care about anything. A person in passion does care because they live for others, as they think. But in fact, if you analyze their life, you can see that they are constantly dissatisfied with everything. One constantly argues with everyone, clarifies relationships, constantly torments everyone, disciplines others, teaches them something, constantly tries to attract more money in life. That means that a person in passion also has an egoistic nature, but they do it within the framework of family life law, state law. That means that they use relationships to do something for themselves. According to the Vedas, there aren't that many people in degradation on earth. Most people are in passion. There are also people in pure goodness. People in pure goodness have understood that true happiness is found in loving relationships, and true love is a bit different. That means true love is sincere, honest, and it's difficult to achieve in life. Because sincere, honest relationships are very difficult to build, because in every person, according to the Vedas, inside us, there is egoism. This is the third part of the subtle energy body, which we haven't discussed with you yet. The most important thing for you to understand is that every person has egoism inside, meaning a wrong idea about their happiness. You understand? Egoism means perceiving oneself as a personality. The main thing a person looks for is happiness. In this self-centered perception of oneself, the essence is the feeling of where I will get happiness. And we have such a program embedded inside. In our egoism, there is a force that makes us think that happiness is always when something is done for me. Not when I do something for others and forget about myself, but when something is done for me. You understand? For example, if I say now at the lecture that if you make donations to someone, you will be happy. Let's say you go and make a donation, the person just takes the donation and that's it. You say, but where's the happiness? The donation is made. Where's the happiness? There's no happiness. This means that we wanted something else. You understand? Or let's say I give flowers. I give flowers and think, where's the happiness? Where are the smiles? Where's the love? Or a wife cooked for her husband. But where's his thank you? Egoism can manifest in two ways. The first way, I simply demand something for myself. Then there's a scandal. The second way, I take care of a person and then demand, then dependency develops, but there's also no love. Love always has a non-egoistic, independent nature, and it's very difficult to achieve. What's the problem? Why don't we love each other? Because in order to love, you need to connect with the non-egoistic nature of the one you want to love. When non-egoistic nature comes into contact with egoistic nature, then the egoistic nature in me also flares up. It still lives, it exists. For example, a wife selflessly cooked for her husband, but he, the scoundrel, didn't even say thank you. Seemingly she cooked selflessly, but still she had an unpleasant feeling inside. This means that we don't always have enough strength to build real relationships that can bring happiness. And we will talk about this a little bit today too, but mainly in the next lectures. I'm now giving an overview lecture so that we can later deeply understand what we're talking about. So, the subtle energy body consists of intelligence and mind. Mind is the foundation of our life. Our life is in the mind. Our fate flows there, in the mind. In the mind, we love. In the mind, our mood resides. Our illnesses are located there as well. In the subtle energy body of the mind, human illnesses reside. Depression, a difficult period of life, is also in the mind. When you fall out of love, it also happens in the mind, because this is also karma. That means that the planets influence in such a way that you develop coldness towards a close person and fall out of love. Coldness means the action of karma. Let's now become reasonable, because according to the Vedas, knowledge solves all questions in life. Just one condition. Knowledge must be correct. If it's incorrect, then it doesn't solve the issue. Look, one important thing. Let's say I loved someone and fell out of love. This means literally I don't experience happiness from this person. What does this mean? The first option that usually comes to our mind, it means that this person is not suitable for me. I have incompatibility with them that I didn't understand before. The second option is more trivial, but is correct according to the Vedas. You've entered a bad period of life in which you have incompatibility, but since fate moves in waves, you need to wait a couple of years and a good period will come in which you will get back the previous compatibility with this person. Like in the song, "What's happened to you, my friend, again? Maybe I'm at fault somehow." You can't be silent, stubbornly silent for an hour and another hour in a row. That means time comes and people meet again. The Vedic culture talks about exactly this. You need to wait. Being reasonable means waiting. But you might tell me, Dr. Torsunov, it's impossible to wait. Do you know why it's impossible? Because we are slaves. Slaves to the wrong idea of happiness. This selfishness is actually the most terrible thing. We are slaves to the external concept of happiness, because if people live an inner life and they face a difficult period in life, they still continue to remain on the platform of happiness. Life has become harder for them, of course, but they remain on the platform of happiness because they generate happiness from within. They don't depend on how others treat them. They don't depend on whether they are loved or not. They depend on what happened during their morning prayer. Inner life. Inner life changes the external situation. Now let's figure out why we don't love each other, what happened. There are two ways to figure it out. We sit across from each other and start analyzing everything. First you told me this, remember? You said it to me like that. Then I said this and that's why I left you. And then I don't even know how everything happened. Like in the song, suddenly, as in a fairy tale, the door creaked and everything became clear to me now. Therefore I left you. I met another person. And it's all because of you. Remember what you told me then? I lost my faith in you and that's it. It wasn't my fault. He came by himself. This is one way to solve problems, and in reality the problem isn't solved this way. Because in reality everything is much more trivial. Because the time comes, and as the song goes, the day will come, the hour will come, and even the thinnest thread cannot be cut by a steel blade. There comes a time when a person can't do anything about what's happening. And this happens from within. The Vedas describe the structure of the subtle energy body of the mind. This is connected with events that occur. We have this sphere that I mentioned, where deep memory is stored. It's located at the very bottom of the subtle energy body of the mind, in its very depths. It's compared to a lake. At the very bottom is karma. It's compared to the silt or sand in a lake. And these grains of karma, they float up. The lake itself, the water, represents our mind, where our thoughts, feelings, sensations, and everything else are located. A grain of sand floats up and passes through a certain layer of water. A person cannot feel this layer within themselves, but it strongly affects everyone else. For example, a force that emanates from me makes my wife not love me. It seems to me that she doesn't love me, but I don't understand why. It seems unfair to me, but from the position of intelligence, look how intelligence overcomes fate. If a person knows about the law of karma, they assume that this force comes from within themselves. Therefore, such a person doesn't blame their spouse for stopping loving them. They understand that this force came from them, and change their spouse's attitude towards them. As a result, what does a person do? They start working on themselves so that this force emanating from them stops acting. More precisely, to stop this force from acting through me. You see, as a result, a person changes the situation. Let's say the husband started cheating. There are two ways to act. Kick him out and let him continue cheating. Punish him like that. And who do you end up punishing? You had a husband. He started cheating and now he has no wife. That's how it turns out. And you had a husband. You kicked him out and now you have no husband. And he didn't have a wife already because he left, started cheating. And you had this cheating husband, but you kicked him out. Now you have none at all. Who did you punish? You punished yourself. Because you could have started praying and through prayer overcome your fate, and as a result some specific thing would have awakened inside him that indicates karma can be defeated. Do you know what this thing is called? Conscience. He goes to his girlfriend, to his lover, and inside his heart right here, his conscience. It becomes hard for him to go there, then even harder, his legs get heavier, he can't do it anymore, because his wife is waiting, she believes. He has children. Conscience points to all this, saying, "You scoundrel, you have children, they love you, and you're going to your lover, but your children love you more than this woman loves you, so choose." And the person chooses. Why? Because his wife prays. The prayer goes on, and this prayer means the activity of intelligence. Yes, intelligence overcomes bad fate, and now she's not meant to be alone. She is meant to have her husband make amends, return back, and he's already being pulled back. But since he's not acting from the platform of intelligence, meaning he's an unreasonable person, he can no longer go where he was being pulled before, and now he's being pulled in the other direction. How do unreasonable people live? They go with the flow. Happiness went in this direction, they went after happiness. Then happiness went in another direction, they went in that direction too. But a reasonable person doesn't depend on the flow. They fulfill their duty in life. They live according to rules. The rule is, if I get married, I live with my wife. This is a sign of intelligence. Sometimes it will be hard, sometimes it will be easier, but I still live with my family. You see, intelligence establishes rules and makes a person happy. A life in pure goodness means a reasonable life based on a sense of duty. The Vedas say that true love is not infatuation. Infatuation is when you're acting on feelings, thinking, where can I find such a person that I would always feel happy with? That's infatuation. This is the position of feelings. It's an incorrect platform in life. When a person dreams of such love, they will never get happiness in life. The second option, where to find the strength to behave in such a way that I have a good relationship with my husband. This is the platform of intelligence, and it gives happiness in life. Thus a person overcomes their fate. So there is a platform of the mind, there is an emotional platform, there is a physical platform. The physical platform is really something weird. They came to a disco, danced together, they danced. It's clear what happened afterwards, so unexpectedly in life. The woman says, it happened so unexpectedly. What's unexpected about it? Everything is clear. They danced, and it's clear what happened then. That's all. And what is it called afterwards? Not a single mother, but a single night. Why? Because the physical platform is the most disadvantageous platform. The physical platform simply means passion, and that's all. It's a disadvantageous platform because people just enjoy each other and part ways. As young people say now, sex is not yet a reason to get acquainted. This is what the physical platform means, the platform of passion. When the soul acts at the level of intelligence, then living by rules becomes very valuable to it, by the rules of honesty, love, and laws. This is called a life in pure goodness. When the soul lets its consciousness into the mind, then the person lives an emotional life. That means that the rule depends on whether I feel good or not. If I feel bad, I leave. If I feel good, I stay. I had a consultation recently on Ayurveda radio. A woman said that they lived with her husband, had a child, and at some point he suddenly decided to leave her and said, I don't feel as good with you as before. I want to live happily. Goodbye. This means living on the platform of feelings. I want love. I want to experience strong love. And then a person says goodbye. I wish happiness for you and happiness for myself. Since I don't love you as much as before, goodbye. We don't have happiness now. I'll find another person, I'll be able to make them happy, and you'll find someone else. We are meant to have other relationships. Goodbye. Like in the song, Goodbye, from all stations trains are leaving to faraway lands. We're parting forever under the white sky of January. A person leaves with a smile, with a feeling of happiness. This is such a concept. Don't think this happens because something is wrong with the person. This happens because of the misunderstanding of life. I wanted to experience such happiness where I would always feel good with a person. Since it's impossible to always feel good, it's already predetermined that you'll end up alone, that you'll leave your close person, or you'll drive them to the edge until they leave. That is also an option. Let's say you've listened to Dr. Torsunov's lectures. You think, I can't leave. Well, okay, let him leave himself. You drive him to the point where he leaves. You think, I didn't leave. I have good karma. He left. Look, when consciousness is in intelligence, a person experiences happiness from living honestly. They need an honest life. They understand that sometimes honest life is difficult, sometimes easy. They need an honest life, a life in pure goodness. It means consciousness mainly goes into intelligence. When consciousness goes into the mind, it's a life of passion, based on the feeling of happiness. If I feel good, we stay together. If I don't feel good, I leave. It's passion. Degradation means that consciousness goes too much into the body, then a person is overwhelmed by strong feelings, and they simply lose their mind. It happens that a man just sees someone and loses his mind. He follows that girl like a dog. He can't stop. Why? Because feelings emanate from her and they carry him away. He wants sex with her. That's why he follows her. It's a material understanding of life. Material understanding of life. One just wants sex with another person and that's all. Sometimes during consultations, very educated people ask, how's your personal life? How many times per week? This indicates a material understanding of life. That means consciousness completely fills the body, and the person doesn't understand that personal life is spiritual life. It's not about how many times per week, and not even about whether you feel good or bad with this person. It's something completely different. It means whether you trust or don't trust this person. There are different platforms on which we build our personal life. Depending on these platforms, we will be living accordingly. For example, I sing this song at every seminar. I really like it. I believe in you, my dear wife. This faith saves me from death in the dark night. You understand? That means a man sits in a trench while his wife with a child in a stroller can't sleep. And by the baby's crib, she secretly sheds a tear, and he's in the trench. The night is dark. Only the whistle of bullets is heard. Only the wind howls. You understand? A very realistic picture. This means the relationship is genuine. This is how relationships between people should be. You understand? They are based on different things. If a man cheats on his wife, he can't sing such songs anymore because such songs are sung when a relationship is built on a spiritual platform. Such a relationship is impossible without inner life. Inner life means life with God because a person cannot live an inner life with TV. Some people are obsessed with soap series, some with detective stories, some with football or hockey. Some people are obsessed with drinking beer with friends, some people are obsessed with sex, others are obsessed with their new house, some are obsessed with their child, but this is not inner life. This is external life. If a child throws a tantrum, you'll punish them. Inner life ends there. I love my child so much, that's why I spank them. This doesn't mean strong love. This means a strong desire to enjoy this child. When they don't bring you enjoyment, anger arises in you. This is not love and this is not inner life. This is just a desire to enjoy the body. Just as you enjoy your husband's body, you also enjoy your child's body. It's the same thing. There's no difference. This doesn't mean there's no inner life with a child. It exists. We need to understand what it means. Otherwise, there won't be happiness in life. Because there is a physical platform of happiness, there is a mental platform, there is a platform of intelligence, of intelligent approach to life. We are now trying to study the intelligent approach and how to build relationships with close people on the platform of intelligence. And for this, we must talk a bit about intelligence. Intelligence is a mental structure that is very strongly directed towards three things: eternity, knowledge, and happiness. The mind strongly needs these three things. The mind needs stability, to have a stable life, to have a place to live. For a woman, stable life means having a place to live. For a man, it's usually work. Sometimes it's the opposite. That means we need stability in life to be able to eat properly every day, to have a salary. We can't live without stability. Life becomes difficult for us and we force our intelligence to search for this stability. This suffering is experienced in the mind. Then a person strives for eternity. Then they strive for happiness. We cannot live without happiness. We need happiness. And the mind strives for knowledge because without knowledge there is neither eternity nor happiness. A person wants to know. We want to know what will happen. People are built this way. We want to know. Every person wants to know. So intelligence strives for knowledge, eternity, and happiness. It feeds the mind with these three things. It's interesting how intelligence can be directed. The first option, the mind demands happiness from intelligence, and intelligence runs where the mind wants. For example, a person walks down the street, sees ice cream and says, I want ice cream, runs there, buys ice cream and eats it. Then a person sees a cake. I want cake. and runs there to eat a cake. This means perceiving the world from the position of the mind. Second option, a person lives according to knowledge. Let's say one walks and sees ice cream. Looks at the watch, it's already late to eat ice cream, and thinks, no, I won't eat ice cream because I'll have a sore throat. This means a person lives on the platform of intelligence. A person on the platform of intelligence lives according to certain rules in life. People on the platform of mind just live spontaneously and do whatever they want. There is also a sensual physical platform. This is when a person doesn't care about anything, doesn't want to know anything at all. They live as they want, without any rules. Just like there are fights without rules, life can also be without rules. It turns into a fight without rules. If I want to cheat, I do it. If I don't want to, then I don't do it. Everything depends on what I want. Intelligence strives for knowledge above all. Happiness and eternity follow from this. Intelligence strives for these three things through knowledge. It achieves all these things, therefore knowledge is the foundation of existence, as the Vedas say. A person must understand how to live correctly. This is the meaning of human life. People should be interested in this. Because if they sincerely don't want to learn how to live correctly, then they won't be able to live right, because a person's intelligence opens up due to the sincere desire to change their life. Intelligence activates through this sincere desire to change. Intelligence is woven from this aspiration towards happiness. Happiness can be spiritual, or it can be material. Let's say I want to build a house. This is also happiness. Intelligence can be directed towards a house. It can be directed towards subtle matter. Like in the song, "Return my music to me." Without music, there's sadness. We broke up, but our music remained. That means subtle matter. One doesn't care if they broke up or not. The main thing is that the music remains. This is subtle energy, meaning a person is happy with subtle energy. One is happy on a subtle level, and there is spiritual happiness. It stands even higher. Spiritual happiness is when a person doesn't part with anyone. They are always faithful. They live honestly. They don't need music anymore, but need people, need the souls that are around. They treat people as souls, not as someone who gives them music. If you don't give me music, get out. We broke up, but I'll still keep the music. This is a sensual platform, a subtle platform. The physical platform is sex. The subtle platform means inner happiness, what a person strives for. And the spiritual platform is when a person doesn't want to betray anyone. They experience happiness in this. In any case, intelligence strives either for material things, having a place to live, having sex. A completely materialistic person only needs a place to live, sex, food, and sleep. Money is subtle energy. When a person strives for fame, success, money, this is a subtle aspiration. Or a person strives to fulfill their duty in life, make everyone happy, take care of everyone, and so on. This is the spiritual platform. One and the same intelligence can strive for either direction, but when intelligence strives for the spiritual, it is independent from the mind. Because when intelligence strives for the spiritual, it becomes dependent on the divine. When a person leads a divine life, they become righteous. When intelligence strives for subtle happiness, it becomes passionate because it's subordinate to the desires of the mind. Subtle energy means mental energy, first of all. On a subtle level, a person strives for personal happiness. They say, the main thing is that I feel good in life. Everything else doesn't matter. In this case, a person doesn't degrade like an ignorant person. Their life becomes harder and harder because, in fact, there are only two roads, either up, meaning towards the spiritual, or down, towards the material. Either you slide down to the platform of physical senses or you elevate yourself. Life in passion is self-deception. A person searches for something, but none of it exists. There's simply no happiness in this world. If you pass the exam, you go up. If you fail, you go down. There's only up and down. If you pass the exam, you become happy. If you fail, you become unhappy. Our life is about exams. Our life is not meant for happiness, but for passing our exams. We think, I live for happiness. No, we don't live for happiness on this earth. If we lived for happiness, we wouldn't die in agony here, wouldn't get terribly sick, there wouldn't be wars, there wouldn't be such a terrible birth process when a newborn forgets everything they remembered before. The Vedas describe that in the 7th month of pregnancy, a child remembers up to 100 of their past lives. As a result of the terrible state they experience during birth, they forget everything. A newborn is in shock. In this shock, they forget everything they remembered before. Their eyes remain wise, but they don't know anything anymore. They've forgotten everything. Inner wisdom remains, but they have no memory. And memory is also a function of intelligence. Memory is a very important and valuable function of intelligence. We forget. We forget everything. We forget, therefore we behave differently in this life. We need to learn to remember. Memory returns during inner life. Inner life brings deep memory about a person to the surface. The Vedas say that a person should remember their close one as they met them for the first time, and every day during prayer this memory should come out, should surface by itself. A person should feel people, treat people very honestly, see the best in them, and try not to notice the bad. This memory helps establish the right relationships with people. The next function of intelligence is purposefulness. A person strives towards what they have set as a goal in their life. Purpose is the most important thing that exists in our life. It's impossible to live without it. If a person doesn't set goals at all, they simply degrade. Next is faith. Faith only exists in relation to a goal. A person can't just believe. One thinks, I believe. If you believe, then go where you believe. If you don't go there, you just say, I believe. And you don't go there, you go somewhere else in life. It means that you don't believe. That means you've simply deceived yourself. If you believe, go there. Let's say you believe in God, go to God, pray to Him every day. To go means to do. The Vedas say that intelligence consists of actions. It doesn't consist of theory. Theory is in the mind, actions are in intelligence. The Vedas say that actions are transmitted through intelligence. Let's say a person talks about something. If they do it themselves, those who listen to them also start doing it. This is a very subtle thing. It's not visible to the eyes. But time comes and a person starts acting according to what they heard. Therefore, what do the Vedas assert? They assert that through listening, the most fundamental changes occur in people's hearts. The most powerful method of changing fate is to talk about higher things and listen about them. This is the most reliable way to change your life. Serious, sincere conversation is the most powerful way to change fate. Intelligence consists of faith and knowledge. It strives for this knowledge. It also consists of memory. Intelligence is capable of changing life. It creates bad habits if striving in the wrong direction, and removes these habits if striving in the right direction. Intelligence always takes action. For example, wake up early, wake up early, wake up early. This is a thought of intelligence. Intelligence wakes up early and goes to bed early, while the mind sleeps longer and goes to bed late. The mind overeats, argues, doesn't want to listen to anyone, while intelligence wants to overcome itself, wants to go to bed on time, wants to avoid arguing, wants to forgive, wants to ask for forgiveness. Therefore, intelligence wants to overcome fate, while the mind follows fate's lead. Is it clear? Can you feel the difference now? So we've covered this topic. The next topic is the soul. The soul has consciousness. The soul has an energetic aspect, an aspect of energy. The soul's energy is consciousness. What is consciousness? I'm speaking now and you are listening to me. You are listening to my consciousness. Because if, let's say, I were to deceive you, you would feel it and would still listen, but differently. Consciousness is transmitted from one person to another, therefore nothing can be hidden, everything is on the surface. Human consciousness should be attached to the highest things in life. The higher the attachment of consciousness, the more correctly life flows, because the soul itself has its own structure. It consists of eternity. That means that besides consciousness, the soul also has a spiritual body. The spiritual body doesn't live in this world, it sleeps. In this world we live using the subtle energy body and physical body. The spiritual body only lives in an atmosphere of complete, continuous, selfless service to the truth. The truth means the energy of love. It means pure love. Pure love means that a person forgets about themselves, serves continuously, wishes happiness to everyone, and takes care of others. It means the soul has awakened, it lives. When we think about ourselves, the soul falls asleep. The spiritual body of a person sleeps at this time. In fact, most people live as if in a dream because they always live for themselves. Real life, true life is deep. It is full of faith, strength, love, purity. Real life awakens when a person tries to live not for themselves. And this is very difficult in this world because in this world everything is made up of selfishness, absolutely everything. Even trees are selfish, birds are selfish, everything around is made up of selfishness. Everything wants to live for itself. One needs to overcome all this, to rise against it. The soul must stand on a spiritual platform, live in a spiritual way, not material way. The soul has three energies. The soul is always attracted to the energy of eternity. The soul always wants to live eternally. And the energies of knowledge and happiness attract the soul depending on the tasks it sets for itself in life. If the soul wants happiness or love, it receives a subtle energy body that has a feminine nature. Will the soul be born as a girl or a boy? This is actually determined before conception. The soul, being in the subtle energy body, is already directed, let's say, towards happiness in this life. It wants love, therefore it is born as a girl. It is conceived as a girl because the soul wants happiness. And the chromosomes adjust to this. That means that these are just technical aspects. The subtle energy body has already been created. It is tuned to feminine nature. The subtle energy body can be tuned to masculine nature. Then it can restructure and tune to feminine nature. As a result, the person grows up as a woman. The same person who is now a man can be born as a woman in the next life. I'm a man, and it's difficult for me to fully understand this. A woman is a mystery to men. A woman is woven from love. Her purpose is love. The purpose of her birth is love. Therefore, the whole body acquires soft and gentle features. That means thin arms, and the face has more delicate features. A woman looks at herself in the mirror and thinks, Lord, how beautiful I am, and this beast doesn't understand it. Right? Sometimes such thoughts arise in a woman's mind. They look at themselves and think, I'm so beautiful, but I ended up with such a fool. Such thoughts sometimes come to mind when looking in the mirror. A woman is woven from the energy of beauty. Does anyone object? No one objects. Good. Let's move on to men then. We have the energy of knowledge left. Everyone wants the energy of eternity. Women want love or happiness. Men want knowledge. They want to figure everything out, understand how to live. Human development is very interesting. When a woman is a little girl, she wants to learn to love like her mother, but she can't yet. She always strives for this. A girl watches how adults love and wants to live like that too. She plays with dolls. That means she wants to love a child. She imitates relationships. She wants to love a husband. Let's say she plays all this. She imitates love. She strives for this, but she doesn't have all of this yet. But she has knowledge. A little girl has knowledge. She knows everything. Whatever you ask her, she knows everything. This man is like this woman is like that. Mom, I know everything. She knows everything. A little girl already knows life. Because her heart is already filled with knowledge, she doesn't need to strive for this. Therefore, a woman doesn't have this impulse towards knowledge. It's easy for a woman to study. She absorbs all the material quickly. She remembers everything exactly as the teacher says. It's easier for girls to study than for boys. Therefore, they don't have an impulse towards knowledge, but love is difficult for them to achieve. She wants love. She lacks love in life. A girl lacks love. She really needs it, this love. Boys have the energy of love inside themselves from birth. They have this energy. Boys are very prone to falling in love. A little boy is very prone to falling in love. He falls in love quickly, but he has no knowledge. Knows nothing at all. Let's say he's 5 years old. They ask him, are you hungry? Or you are not. What do you want? To play outside. He knows nothing. A 5-year-old girl knows everything. She sees everything, understands everything, knows everything. A 5-year-old boy knows nothing, but he wants to know, he wants to figure things out. This is an impulse towards knowledge. It constantly drives him. Gradually time comes and a man knows more than a woman. Women think they know more. That's why they don't listen to men. But a man actually knows more. Why do women think they know more? Because they have a very sensitive heart and they see everything around, they feel everything around. But knowledge means knowledge about oneself first of all. The Vedas establish an interesting doctrine. One who truly knows is one who knows about oneself, and one who knows about others does not truly know. What is the main problem of women? They know too much about others. But it's very difficult for them to notice their own flaws. Very difficult, and that's why men know more, because they know their own flaws. Of course, they also try to see flaws in others. This is a common problem. Have you noticed that in arguments, when a man and a woman start arguing, the woman always wins? Why? Because as soon as a man opens his mouth, she's already telling him everything about himself, all his flaws, and he hasn't even had time to understand her flaws, so there's nothing to say. Because he hasn't thought about it, he saw the best in her. What does he love her for? For her beauty. Beauty is the best thing, right? And that's why he doesn't see her flaws. He thinks, you are divine to me. But the woman sees the flaws. She says, well, you're not divine to me, right? A woman has something that a man doesn't have. She has the right answer in her heart. A woman's heart is on the outside, while a man's heart is deep inside. He doesn't feel the situation like a woman does. A woman has the right answer. A woman's intelligence is also strong. But it works towards finding the right answer. Not towards achieving something, but towards finding the right answer. According to the Vedas, a woman easily deals with the areas of life where rules have already been established. It's easy for a woman to navigate where everything is clear. But a man can navigate where nothing is clear. Why? Because he lives his whole life this way. From the very beginning, he doesn't understand what's happening, and he lives in such a system all the time. He's used to living like this, while for a woman, everything is clear from the start. And that's why she's afraid when things are unclear, and she doesn't want to live like that. From the perspective of intelligence, a woman should trust her husband in matters where nothing is clear. And this is where a man has an advantage. And a woman's advantage in areas where everything is clear is undisputed. That's why a man submits to a woman where everything is clear, and a woman submits to a man where nothing is clear. You understand? Husband comes home from work and everything is clear. Take off your clothes, wash up, sit at the table, eat, wash your hands. Everything is clear. Here the man submits, because everything is clear. There's nothing to fantasize about. But when it comes to how we'll live further, then the man should think, because nothing is clear. We assert that there is energy of happiness, there is energy of knowledge. The psyche of men and women is arranged differently. A woman is like a UFO for a man, and a man is like a UFO for a woman, unidentified flying object, UFO. Sometimes not flying, but unidentified. At the beginning of married life, he is not flying, but then he sometimes becomes flying. Let's move forward. Today our topic is about the difference between men and women. We need to study this difference seriously now. Because we need to move forward. We need to learn serious things about relationships. The first difference is that a woman strives for the energy of love. And the energy of love by its nature is very sensitive, subtle, and fragile. The energy of love, the energy of happiness, has a very fragile nature. That's why a woman has a very vulnerable heart. She is very sensitive. She feels everything very sensitively. She perceives the world somewhat from a position of fear. Why? Because it often hurts her. Her feminine heart is very sensitive. That's why a woman sometimes fears an angry look, fears harsh words. She tries to be wary of wrong relationships. This is her nature. Her psyche is very mobile by nature, very mobile. And this mobility is connected with the fact that she seeks harmony. A woman seeks harmony for herself in life. If she comes to work, she adapts to the mood that exists there. She dresses the way everyone has to dress, so that no one hurts her or offends her. She behaves as needed in society. A woman feels uncomfortable behaving in a way that no one else behaves. She needs to behave the way that is accepted in society. This means striving for harmony and for love. She naturally has pleasant speech. A woman has delicacy in communication, the ability to sense a person. She has the inherent ability to adapt to one's mood. And if a man gets too bold, a woman knows how to strike a nerve in him, as this ability is naturally inherent in her. She knows where her husband's weak spot is. And she can say certain words in just the right tone to make him lose his temper. She has a very subtle perception. She knows the subtle and weak spots. All this is naturally inherent in a woman. This is not something to brag about. A woman says to her husband, "Why are you so messy? If you want someone neat, marry a woman. Then it will be neat." A man is naturally messy. He can be neat. He can cultivate this quality. But man's nature is different. Neatness is a feminine quality. Women are naturally given the ability to feel the subtle things. A woman perceives the world through her heart. She perceives everything through emotions. My wife listens to a lecture. She says, "It's a good lecture." I ask, "What is the lecture about?" It doesn't matter, it's good. She perceives through emotions. But a man perceives the world through knowledge. He says, "Yes, the lecture is good because it explains certain things. It's very important to know about this." And a woman says, "Yes, it's important, but you said that wrong." What exactly is wrong with it? What did I say wrong? It doesn't matter. But it's wrong. And then it turns out that it really is wrong. But she can't say why it's wrong. She just knows it's wrong and that's it. A woman perceives the world through her heart. She can, of course, explain in her own way, but her explanation isn't always relevant. But she knows it's wrong. That's why it's very difficult for a woman to communicate with her husband. She knows he's saying something wrong, but can't explain why. A man explains better. His energy of knowledge is better developed. He starts, from the point of view of basic erudition, he starts leading her into logic, starts pushing something on her, explaining. She listens to him carefully and says, "It's still wrong." She's not interested in logic. She lives by her heart. A woman lives by her heart. She's not interested in logic at all. Therefore, you need to communicate with a woman in her language, in the language of the heart. How should you ask her after a lecture? For example, "Did you like the lecture?" "Yes, I liked it too." And then you shouldn't develop the topic further. You can say to a woman, "Shall we live like this now?" "Yes."
And then what?
And then you shouldn't develop the topic further. She'll decide herself later how to live. She can't get up early in the morning, and since she's sensitive by nature, it's very difficult for her to admit this to herself. It's hard for her to accept that I'm bad, I don't get up early. She'll say, "We'll live like this, but we won't get up early." We'll live as Dr. Torsunov said, but we won't get up early. For a man, this is illogical. He says, "How is that? If it was said so, then we need to get up early." It's illogical. What's the idea? What do I want to convey to you? The nature of men and women is absolutely different. It's opposite, and accordingly their character traits are also opposite. Let's say a woman is responsible. She does her work properly, performs everything as needed. She is a responsible woman and gets a good salary. Is this a good character trait for a woman or not? According to the Vedas, no. A woman should be responsible in women's duties, like cleaning the house, cooking. You see, women immediately tensed up. It's always difficult when it concerns you personally. Similarly, it's difficult for a man to be responsible at work. For instance, is a man properly developed if he cooks, cleans, and washes everything at home? He does everything great at home, but doesn't want to go to work? Is this right for a man or not? No. The same applies to a woman, but in reverse. If she works great, has everything under control at work, but at home she can't say a warm, affectionate word, she is considered improperly developed. This is a bad character trait. Now look, it's interesting to know that this woman's drive to make everything good at work, but having no energy at home, is the same thing in a man. I'll make everything good at home, but I have no energy for work. It's the same thing. It's identical. It's impossible to understand this through feelings. You just have to accept it. It's the same thing. Anger in a man and being easily offended in a woman. It's the same thing. For example, if a woman is very easily offended and she's born as a man in the next life, then in the next life she becomes rough and angry in a male body. In a female body, she's easily offended. She says, being easily offended is good, but rudeness is bad. Assume she says that. In this case, she's mistaken because it's the same thing. You see how cleverly everything is arranged? Now I have a question for you. Can you see your own flaws in your husband's eyes? In your husband's face? Here's your husband. Can you see your own flaws in your husband? What's the answer? How to do this? It can be done from the position of intelligence. That's the first option. One woman asked me, Dr. Torsunov, please tell me, what would I be like if I were a man? I say, are you sure you want to know about this? She says, yes. I say, prepare yourself for an unexpected answer. She was already tense. I say, you would be exactly like your husband. She was shocked. Exactly the same as her husband. Can you imagine? Maybe a little different. No, exactly the same. I mean, his attitude towards you. When people have several marriages, they notice that in the next marriage a person behaves completely differently than in the previous one. They seem to become different, as if they've been changed, but it's not really the person behaving this way. We play other people's games in this world. Our behavior depends on what is destined for our close person. And they perceive me as such a person, although I feel that I'm a bit different. This means that how you perceive your husband is the kind of man you can become in your next life. From this perspective, there's no point in discussing who is better or worse. It's a useless activity, a waste of time. This is great knowledge. If a person realizes it, life becomes difficult at first, then it becomes easy because there's nothing to blame the other person for. Interesting to know that men initially take on the suffering of the whole family. Naturally, the karma of their wife and children accumulates in their psyche. That means they take on the burden of life on the subtle energy level. A woman initially takes on the purity of the family or its conscience. A woman is responsible for the family's purity. That's how it's arranged in this world. She feels whether we're going the right or wrong way in life. She takes this on initially. A man initially takes on the burden of family life. This burden accumulates in him. Let's say a husband starts drinking. This means he can't handle the burden of life. When a woman starts having tantrums, meaning she's crying all the time, it signifies she can't maintain purity within herself. Interesting to know that when a woman can't maintain purity, the husband starts drinking. If a woman maintains a family in purity, in an atmosphere of spiritual purity, it means that the husband won't become an alcoholic because his conscience is on the outside. Conscience is feminine energy. It has feminine nature. If a woman allows that there is no God and no altar in the house, although she feels that spiritual life is needed, and this is inherent to women from birth, if she has allowed there to be no altar in the house, no prayer, no holiness in the house, then the burden of life accumulates on the husband. What happens? He breaks down and starts drinking. Who suffers from this? Everyone suffers. A man should strive to fight for his fate. He should not lead a lazy life, but an ascetic one. If a man doesn't perform asceticism practice, doesn't overcome the burden of family life through inner asceticism practice, then as a result the woman loses purity because she is in constant anxiety. When family life becomes difficult, a woman's mind becomes clouded. She cannot perceive events clearly. She starts to panic. You see, everything is interconnected. If a woman doesn't lead a pure life, a man cannot carry his burden. If a man doesn't carry his burden, a woman cannot lead a pure life. Everything is connected together, and where does it all go? In the direction we pointed it to. Try to understand this thing. There are two ways to live in this world. We haven't described male nature yet. A man by nature strives for development, strives for victories, achievements. He has a firm character. This means that his psyche is stable. A man's psyche is immobile, while a woman's psyche is constantly moving. Men have the ability to focus and achieve their goals. A woman doesn't have such ability. A woman strives for stability. A man strives for changes. A man changes for the better. A woman remains as she was. That's why God gave women purity from the beginning. She doesn't need to improve anything. She needs to preserve herself. A woman preserves herself. A man changes himself. A man should sleep on a hard surface, live an ascetic life, take cold showers, overcome the desire to enjoy a woman. A man must strive for knowledge, meaning he must strive for God. He should engage in spiritual practice and overcome his bad habits. He must overcome his tendency toward a lazy life. He needs to work constantly. A woman should work on maintaining purity in life, while a man must work on life itself. He must overcome life. He needs to work in three areas. First, he must earn a living. That's the second direction. But the first direction is this: he must purify his existence. He must overcome ignorance and understand that he is a soul. He should engage in spiritual practice. This is his primary responsibility in life. His second responsibility is his duty to his family. This involves work, providing stability for the family. And the third responsibility is to ensure his wife is happy, his family is happy, and his children are happy. This means setting aside his masculine nature to find harmony with his wife. On one hand, a man must overcome. This involves willpower and inner firmness, a strong, disciplined approach. But in his relationship with his wife, he must be very soft, not harsh. Stand there, be quiet. This is the man's third responsibility. His first responsibility is spiritual practice, purifying his existence. His second responsibility is earning for the family. And when he comes home, he fulfills his third responsibility, behaving in the family like a lamb. He speaks gently and tenderly, as though he has no strength, no firmness, no drive. If a man neglects his first responsibility, striving for a spiritual life, then he doesn't grow as a person. He won't rise to a higher position in society. As the song says, the way you were is the way you remain. This means the person isn't developing spiritually. They remain unchanged. Nothing progresses.
How can I help him?
That's a good question, very much a woman's question. How can I help? The Vedas call women Shakti, which means energy or the power to help. A man is called Purusha, the one who must change himself, the one who needs help. For a woman, spiritual life means prayer, praying to help. For a man, spiritual life means prayer, praying to act. Each has their role. A woman should pray for the man to transform his life. By doing so, she builds her relationship with God. But if she does this for herself so that her life gets better, it won't work. The question itself arises from self-interest. Once I asked a woman, "Why do you want your husband to stop drinking?" She said, "Why? So we can live normally?" That's for herself. I asked, "Are you even interested in who he really is? What kind of person is he? Why does he drink?" She answered, "Because he wants to, that's why he drinks." But that's not necessarily true, my dear. You see, when a person is selfishly motivated, the intention doesn't work. A woman wants a happy life, so she prays for her husband to stop drinking. It won't work. A prayer rooted in selfishness doesn't work because God is free of selfishness. Such a prayer doesn't interest him. What moves him is selfless intent. That's why we must study life itself. There are two paths in life. One path is an illusion, when a person lives by ideas and dreams that lead nowhere. A life of emptiness. What does an empty life look like? A person lives by what the world shows them. The world shows them they need to get a job, so they live by that. The world shows them they need to buy a house, so they live by that. They see they must raise a child, and they live by that. This is called an empty life, lived in illusion. Do you know why it's empty? If we simply didn't think about these things, it would be the same. When the time comes, a child is born. When the time comes, a house is built. When the time comes, a person goes to work. When the time comes, they die. The body dies. So what are we living for? Are we living for things that happen on their own anyway? The Vedas explain that these things are driven by the forces of nature. A person cannot earn more money before their time. When the time comes, they earn. If the time doesn't come, they don't earn. It's impossible. The desire to earn more money doesn't increase how much you'll earn. Some people think, if I want to earn more, I'll have more money. No, that's not how the system works. More money comes from a person's devoutness. What is devoutness? It's the sum of our good fate and bad fate. How does good fate work? Good fate is woven from selfless acts. For example, if I want to do good for others, my devoutness increases, and my fate does good for me in return. If I focus on doing things only for myself, my devoutness diminishes, and my ability to have more becomes smaller. You might argue, in reality, it's the opposite. A person who strives for money becomes rich, and someone who doesn't strive doesn't get rich. But let's consider this. Some people are naturally inclined to earn money. It's their nature. Their life revolves around it, and their work flows in that direction. That's one thing. But if a person is overly fixated on money and can't detach from the desire for it, they become blind to reality. Imagine someone who desperately wants money. Show them cash, and they'll chase it like a donkey after a carrot. Will they succeed? A novice businessman will trick them easily, and they'll lose everything. Why? Because they're too consumed by their desire to earn. When a businessman works according to their nature, they put in the effort, but their heart is guided by noble intentions. This detachment from money allows them to act rationally. They can clearly assess which deals to make and which to avoid. But when their vision is clouded by an overwhelming desire for money, everything in their life begins to fall apart. An excessive desire for money makes a person poor. If you want to see who desires money the most, go out onto the streets and take a look. The people who stand on the streets with their hands outstretched begging are the ones who desire money more than anyone else, yet they have the least of it. The Vedas state this principle. Material happiness is determined by one's devoutness. Devoutness is earned through selfless actions. To achieve happiness, you must detach yourself from it. The Vedas say, happy is the one who has forgotten about their own happiness. For instance, let's say a woman wants to get married. She's constantly thinking about it. Does that make her more beautiful? No, her face becomes dry and drawn. She's fixated on marriage. As the song goes, "Oh, my silly one, why is your figure wasting away? Should I call a doctor? No, I don't want anything." The more she wants marriage, the slimmer her chances become. If she desperately wants to get married, she meets a man and jumps into bed with him right away. Why? Because she doesn't want to lose him. But it has the opposite effect. When you rush into bed with a man, he loses interest. He kicks you to the curb and says goodbye. To get married, you need to keep some distance from men. And to not get married, stay as close to them as possible. Everything works in reverse. The Vedas explain that every object in this world has the same nature. The more you cling to it, the more suffering it brings you. I know someone who desperately wants to live in the countryside. He owns an apartment. He came to me and asked, when can I start building my house in the countryside? I said, calm down, focus on developing yourself first, live stably, make sure your salary is steady. Gradually, as you save up, you can start building, and eventually the proceeds from selling your apartment will help you in the end. But he didn't listen. He quickly sold everything, began construction, miscalculated his budget, and ended up building nothing. You can't live without a roof. You can't live in an unfinished house without a roof, right? Especially when there's no interior, no finishing, nothing. He said, I miscalculated. Of course you miscalculated. You'll always miscalculate if you rush into things. The issue lies in the fact that people need to live for others. Everything that happens in our world shows us that the purpose of life lies elsewhere. The Vedas explain, if you chase happiness, it will run away from you. But if you bring happiness to others, it will follow you. Take, for example, the story of Cinderella. She served everyone, was a kind-hearted girl, yet she was mistreated, exploited, and humiliated by those around her. Still, she smiled and served everyone. That's how Cinderella behaved. She cared for others and loved everyone. And what was the result? She married a prince. You might say, that's just a fairy tale, Dr. Torsunov. Let's test whether it's a fairy tale or not. Suppose you run a business. Would you want an employee who serves everyone, cares for others, and doesn't focus on themselves? Would you hire someone like that? Or not? If not, raise your hand. Okay, second question. Would you prefer an employee who walks in cocky, arrogant, and full of themselves? Someone who says, I have 3 degrees, so pay me a big salary. I'll show you how it's done. Would you want that type of employee? Who we are determines who comes into our lives. We're discussing the law of karma, right? People like Victor come to me. Others come too. That means I also have something within me that I need to work on. I'm dealing with it. What am I trying to explain to you? The highest and most important thing in life is spiritual growth. What is spiritual life? It's a life detached from all these material goals. For example, I want to get married. Fine. Relax. Start focusing on spiritual practice. Why? Because when you immerse yourself in it, you'll align your destiny to bring you a good husband. When will it happen? When the time is right. Or maybe even earlier if there's grace from higher powers. Sounds a bit discouraging, Dr. Torsunov? Well, there's nothing you can do about that. You're longing for something tangible and earthly, aren't you? We live driven by desires, but life unfolds entirely differently. So what is inner life? How much time do we have left for the lecture? Half an hour? It's time to discuss it. Personal life means deeply intimate relationships. These deep connections are closest to the soul, right? Closest to the soul. Love is the most significant quality of the soul. That's why personal life or intimate relationships are incredibly difficult to achieve in an environment where they're undermined by trying to grasp or demand them. For example, a wife approaches her husband and says, "Speak to me more gently." That's love, in a way, right? But because it's a close relationship, it's tainted by selfishness in this scenario. That makes it impossible. Why? Because love can only thrive in an environment where no one demands anything from anyone, no expectations. But you still want it, don't you? Here's a woman, she desires love. That's why she was born. She's already married, thinking, now love will come. But her husband, the scoundrel, doesn't speak gently to her. The only thing she needs is to humbly ask, "Could you please speak to me more gently?" And instead, he speaks even more harshly. Because love doesn't come from demanding it. In reality, love is just energy. Love is the result of serving. There's the energy of service. When it's activated, love increases, and it begins on an internal level. What is this internal level? As the song says, "I feel good with you, whether in snowfall or pouring rain." What happens externally? Another song captures it. "I'll take you far away, even in a shack. With you, it's paradise." The internal level means that no matter what's happening outside, whether it's a shack, a downpour, a storm, or even no apartment, if the internal level is good, people feel joy in each other's presence. That's what's called the internal level. But the examples I just sang describe an internal level that doesn't depend on the person. The Vedas explain that inside our heart, there's a higher truth. The Vedas refer to it as a personality. Its representation resides in the heart. In this sphere, where the soul is located, behind it exists the personality of God, a personality. The personal relationships we wish to build with others are only possible when we understand what personal energy truly is. This energy has the most subtle and profound spiritual nature. It's this energy that provides true, deep happiness. But the reality is that we tend to treat ourselves personally, while others are merely objects to satisfy our needs. You might say, "Dr. Torsunov, I'm not like that." But are you really? Do you truly understand your husband's needs? For instance, when he comes home from work, do you think about how tired he must be? You think about how he stayed late at work, calling him a scoundrel because he should have come home earlier but didn't. That's what actually happens. Or the man thinks, "But I understand my wife." Well, fine. If you truly understand her, then leave her alone. Stop trying to educate her because it's impossible to educate a woman. She doesn't change. What is a man's internal foundation made of? It's woven from the energy of knowledge, which means constant change. He grows and improves. A man changes. Outwardly, he's like a sturdy tree, appearing unchanging, but inside he evolves. Over time, a husband improves. His character changes. A woman doesn't change. She remains as she is. She may become purer, more refined, but her nature remains the same. Men love trying to educate women, but really, they need to work on themselves. A man is the one who changes, so he should focus on improving himself. A woman, however, must be accepted as she is, not educated. This is the hardest thing for a man to do, accept his wife. Acceptance is not a masculine trait. A woman can accept, it's a feminine quality, but strangely, a man needs to learn to accept his wife. You understand? Relationships are full of opposites. They're unbearable. Relationships between a man and a woman are intolerable. For a self-centered life, they're unbearable. So if a person wants to live selfishly within family life, they're just ruining their destiny. Relationships are unbearable. When a woman lives selfishly, what does she do? A woman doesn't give love, she uses it. She demands love from her husband, but he doesn't have it. Men don't have love. Men don't have love.
Then what do they have?
Knowledge. Something women don't want. Women don't want to be taught anything. That's all men have, knowledge, nothing else. They can teach, but they don't have love. However, if a woman serves her husband, she fills him with the energy of love. A man's heart is grateful because it needs love. Men marry because they need love. A man's heart gives back just as much love as the woman gives through her service. But when a woman demands love from her husband, she drains him. He has no love to give. She pulls everything out of him. He becomes angry, starts yelling at her, even hitting her. Why? Because he's turning into a beast. She's asking for something he doesn't have. Women don't have knowledge. Women don't have knowledge. None. Which means there's no point in demanding anything from them. Why are you acting so foolish? Because she's a woman. She has love, but no knowledge. It's useless to try and change that. Are you going to be hysterical your whole life? Absolutely. If you spend your whole life demanding she change, she'll spend her whole life tormenting you. But if you stop trying to change her, she'll start giving you love, the kind of love she has. The love she has, whatever kind of love she has, that's what she'll give, and that's good. If you stop tormenting her, stop trying to teach her. The point is that a self-centered life will never work. It always leads to failure. A self-centered life means saying, I want to be happy. Forget about it. That's impossible in this world. This world isn't made for happiness. It's made for lessons. In this world, a person has to forget about themselves and start living as they should. That means serving. The energy of service is the ability to serve, to forget oneself. As the song says, leave your troubles behind, your ups and downs. Understand that this life isn't a child's game. And if your friend is struggling, don't wait for a miracle. Hurry to them. Always follow the path of kindness. Do you see the point? The energy of service is hard to come by in this world. We don't have it. Deep down, we're born with the nature to grab. We live for ourselves. A small child is born. What's the first thing they do? You give them something. They grab it right away. If you try to take it back, they scream, Wah! We're born with this grabbing instinct. I recently helped treat a little girl, such a sweet child. She came to me for treatment. She's 4 years old and says, I know your name. You're Dr. Torsunov. A little girl so young, and she's already enjoying the energy of love. But because she's small, everything she does is sincere, and that's why everyone loves her. If she had hidden motives and came in saying, I know your name, but with an adult mindset, it would be different. With hidden intentions, she'd know exactly why she's saying it, but as a little girl, it's spontaneous. She's simply happy because she has the energy of love, and so she sincerely says, Dr. Torsunov, I know your name, and that's it. But if an adult woman comes in and says, I know your name, it has a purpose. That's already an exploitation of the energy of love. It's a completely different thing, and it's unpleasant by its nature. I treated that little girl, but if an adult came in like that, I'd send her away. I'd say, you know my name? Goodbye. If you want treatment, come here for treatment. Inner life is possible only in an atmosphere of service. Without that atmosphere, it's impossible. If one person is in a mindset of service and the other isn't, personal life is still possible. It's possible if the person who is in a service-oriented mindset builds their personal life primarily with God, and secondly, with their loved one. This concept is extremely difficult to grasp, almost impossible to understand. People struggle to comprehend the idea of building relationships with God. What does that even mean? You can't see Him or hear Him? How can we build a relationship with Him? Know this, even though He cannot be seen or heard, He is the closest to us. When a woman sits alone and cries in despair, saying, I want to get married, I'm tired of being alone. Have you ever thought about who she's crying to? She has no one to cry to, so why cry? Why is she crying? Have you ever wondered? A person can only express deep feelings to someone. It's impossible to cry into emptiness. We are always communicating with that presence in our hearts. We talk to him, venting our anger. That scoundrel, I hate him. Who are we speaking to? Him. We complain to him about how bad our lives are. And yet, he can't do anything about it because the laws of karma govern this world. He cannot change those laws. He cannot give a woman a husband even though he knows she needs one. He cannot provide one because there's a karmic law at play. For instance, if she was a man in her past life and abandoned her wife, she is now alone in this life. That's it. Nothing can be done. The law of karma is unyielding. But there is one exception. If this woman forgets about herself and starts caring for others in a truly feminine way, feeding a hungry bird, feeding a lonely grandmother, taking care of everyone, then the presence within her heart grants her fortune. What is fortune? It is divine energy. Fortune does not depend on a person's karma, and fortune becomes possible when we live righteously. In the Vedas, such a life is described as one where a person forgets about themselves and starts serving. The lotus of fortune begins to bloom in their heart. The lotus of fortune. This means that their life comes under divine protection. I warned you this would happen. It's crucial to understand that this is the most important thing in our lives. It's essential to know that the energy of service is unattainable. A person cannot acquire it on their own. We cannot be selfless just because we want to be. Try it. You might think, I want to give something, to donate to someone. You go, you donate, and then later you think, I shouldn't have given that away. It comes unbidden, you didn't expect it. You wanted so hard to do it, but it didn't work out. Do you know why? Because this world is woven from selfishness. Here even plants grow for themselves. They grow, one consuming the other. And what do we live on? We live by consuming other living beings. We feed on their subtle energy bodies. Vegetarians consume less developed forms of life. Those who eat meat consume more developed life forms. But in essence, both consume life, correct? This world is woven from selfishness. There is greater selfishness and lesser selfishness, but regardless, to live here, you must do something for yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? This weighs on our fate and makes us unhappy here. I'm not sharing my own thoughts with you. I'm recounting what was written by great sages in ancient scriptures. Nowadays, people write doctoral theses. They do it with selfish motives, to gain fame, to make money, and so on. But those sages wrote with a spirit of service. It's very important and valuable to understand the difference. Sacred scriptures are timeless. They were written 5,000 years ago and have reached us today. Today there are many theories, countless books. All these books will end up forgotten in a couple of decades, discarded like trash. Even my own books, if you look at them now, will be forgotten in a few decades. But the Vedas will remain. The original Vedic knowledge will endure. Why? Because it was written by pure, selfless sages. This knowledge has an eternal nature. It is indestructible and untouchable by time. These pure, selfless sages describe methods by which a person can overcome their unfortunate fate. The greatest suffering people experience is in their personal lives. Therefore, personal relationships are the most important. The Vedas state that the first people with whom we must establish personal relationships are those who have attained holiness. What does it mean to attain holiness? It means they have forgotten themselves. It means they harbor no hostility toward anyone, no malice. A woman once wrote to me in a letter asking this question on Ayurveda radio. She writes, "My mentor sometimes responds to people with sarcasm." I replied to her that this is not a true mentor. A mentor is someone who no longer harbors sarcasm in their heart. They only have pure feelings toward others, nothing else. Holiness means that a person has overcome seeing others as bad. They see the essence, the core of a person. The core of every person is purity. Every individual carries this purity at their root within themselves. A true sage sees the essence of people. They do not look at the surface. This means they see the very best in people, which is why it's possible to build the best relationships with them. Why do they see the best in people? Because they don't need anything from them. A mentor doesn't need anything from others. They draw their satisfaction from their relationship with the ultimate truth, which resides right within us. Satisfaction can be drawn only when you selflessly serve this truth. How does one serve the higher truth? By living your life. You must learn to live honestly, and even that requires help from the truth itself. On your own, you can't live honestly, but with its help, you can try, and gradually you'll succeed more and more. Next, you must learn to love. In fact, even those who embark on this path don't fully understand what love truly is yet, but they will understand because they are on the righteous path. So when a person steps onto this path, the path of service, they gain the energy of service and give it to others, because this energy cannot be generated from within oneself. It enters a person's heart through their relationship with God. The Vedas explain that God is inaccessible to us because we cannot build personal relationships with Him on our own. Personal relationships are deep relationships built on faith, purity, loyalty, and selflessness. Try right now to treat someone purely, loyally, selflessly, and deeply. Can you do it or not? Who can? Who? Raise your hands. No one's raising their hands. They're too shy. I would ask you to treat me that way right now. You'd see that it's impossible. It's just impossible. We don't have it within us. But if a person builds a relationship with a holy person, and look at what kind of relationship they build, they say, "I'm tired of my foolish, insignificant life where I constantly face failures. I want to live by your advice, by your way of life, by your laws, by your fate." When a person speaks like this, then, according to the law of fate, according to the law that exists in this world, their life, their teachings, their advice transfer here. And immediately the world is different, and immediately the sun rises. The person begins to feel an unusual sensation in their heart. This happens because they sincerely accepted someone senior into their life. Of course, we cannot immediately accept a senior who lives on this earth because it requires great fortune and great grace. Notes will probably be tomorrow morning. I just need to prepare now and explain how we will proceed further. We'll practice wishing everyone happiness. I need to explain this. It's a very profound concept. So what's the idea? You only have one type of response, a sneeze. You can also cough. You can even fall off a chair. Sometimes people fall off chairs during my lectures in other cities. So what's the point? At first, a person establishes a relationship with holiness that is inaccessible, something on an icon, something far away. Gradually, they build a relationship with God closer and closer, and God reveals Himself more closely as He lives within people. The Vedas describe that on the tree of the body 2 birds live. One bird is the soul, and the other is the oversoul, the supreme soul, the Paramatma. The Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, sits behind us. It observes how we live, watching over us because, in fact, we're not meant to live in this world. We are born here because we are taking our exams in this world. We are meant to live in the spiritual world where everything is woven from service. There, happiness is ever increasing, the kind of happiness we long for. We sing, tomorrow will be better than yesterday. That's the spiritual world, not this one. Tomorrow in this world will only get worse. We age here. Life becomes harder and more difficult. How many days are left? How to relieve the fatigue? Life in this world moves in that direction. Like in the song Green-Eyed Taxi, slow down and take me to the place where they will always welcome me. That's impossible. Instead, you must rejoice in everyone around you. Then everything will align properly. That's the version of life you truly want. So what's the idea? A person must rise against what has accumulated inside them. They want happiness, harmony, to be loved. They want a normal life, a decent salary, not to live like an animal. They just want a simple, normal life, nothing more. This is an illusion. It's unattainable in this world. Some people get it temporarily, but then they lose it again. You told me to believe, but living without loss is impossible. That's how this world is structured. So there is a method. If you were to look into my heart now, you would see that the method exists. Words cannot prove this, only the heart can. The method lies in a person sincerely, wholeheartedly initiating a revolution within themselves. They decide to live as advised by holiness. They may look at an icon. Muslims look to their sacred book. For example, Muslims also have the sacred name, the holy name. They write it in Arabic script and worship it. Worship means that you do so with great sincerity and depth. You try to form relationships with someone who won't betray them. Because in the world we live in, we strive for these personal relationships, but they are impossible here. Everything is woven with selfishness. And loved ones, firstly, are incapable of processing these deep personal relationships. For example, imagine your husband comes up to you and says, "I love you," with complete sincerity. Would you believe him? Would you completely surrender to that love immediately? Would you dive into its ocean right away? No, no, and no. That love would be trampled. That's why no one comes up and says it like that, except perhaps a young man who still believes such love is possible in this world. And that's why their hearts are often deeply broken. In youth, everyone experiences a broken heart. Why? Because you believe that in this world, such personal, deep love between people exists. But that love, personal and deep, is a spiritual feeling. It belongs only to relationships that contain holiness. When a person renounces worldly happiness, they are called a holy person. Such people often lead monastic lives. They do not claim anything, nor do they pretend to the world. They honestly say, "I won't catch anything here in this world." And they bravely walk toward God. These people are by nature selfless, pure, faithful, and profound. And if you were to say to such a person, "I love you," with deep sincerity, you would receive an equally sincere response. This means that God already lives in their heart. Such a person has already built a close relationship with God. And this signifies that luck has already awakened in your life because you spoke the right words to the right person. Those words will not be trampled by this person. For instance, if a woman approaches her mentor and says, "I love you, mentor," and the mentor responds, "Whoa," this means he is not a mentor. A true mentor or saintly person will never feel lust toward a woman who has entrusted herself to him. Nor will a true mentor ever feel superiority over a man who entrusts himself to him. A true mentor is always a servant. He serves everyone. He does not desire to be a master. He serves a woman by honoring her love. He serves a man by fulfilling his desire for knowledge. To both, the mentor is a servant. His goal is to serve, and he finds happiness in it. True happiness always lies in the realm of service. True love always exists in the realm of service. Between people, these relationships are impossible without the support of holiness. When a person relies on holiness and builds a close relationship with a holy person, they can then pass those relationships to their close ones. How? Through inner life. It is pointless to try externally. Discussing or clarifying things outwardly is futile. It will just lead to the same disputes. Here's the method. A person builds pure relationships with holiness. This is a very deep and pure path. If you leave now and start discussing my lecture amongst yourselves, Dr. Torsunov said this and that, blah, blah, blah. Forget it. This pure path is impossible for you. The pure path is a path of pure relationships. You simply accept what I've said and later reflect on it alone. Then you will understand what I mean. This is inner life. It is not a topic for discussion. This is a sacred inner life. It is not discussed. It is a life lived in solitude, alone with sanctity and with yourself. You will not be able to explain it to anyone. But when you begin living an inner life, you will start to recognize others who also live this way. I can explain this to Victor. But if I try to explain it to you as I do to him, you may not be able to reciprocate. Perhaps someone can. And if they can, it means they too already live an inner life. Inner life is very deep, subtle, and pure. It is not accessible to ordinary people. But if a person, through interaction with holiness, lives such a life, they can transmit this pure life to their loved ones. At first, on a very deep level, on the level of faith, you will begin to establish deep, pure relationships with your loved ones. Interestingly, this will not manifest externally in any way. On the contrary, at first, your close ones may become agitated and even behave worse. When you start forming pure inner relationships with them, what will come out of them first? Garbage. This garbage has accumulated in the heart and in the relationship. At first, it will surface. Then, after it surfaces, repentance will follow, and finally, a desire for a relationship will emerge. This process can take several years, typically 2 to 3 years. After this time, your close person will become endlessly grateful to you for what you've done for them in their life. Not everyone follows this path, only those who believe in holiness. If you don't believe in this, then nothing will come of it. Belief means trying. Faith is not blind, it is a science. You try it, pray, and observe the results. But we prefer to experiment with earning money or manipulating others. We can try those things, but trying to pray, this is not easy. For that, you must truly acquire this ability from others. The Vedas explain that any spiritual quality is always passed on. A person cannot create it themselves. For example, this lecture of mine may deeply resonate with someone's heart. Tomorrow morning they may sit down and pray with tears in their eyes. This means that this transmission has occurred. It is an internal process. It is passed from one person to another. It cannot be imitated or self-generated. For example, if during this lecture you didn't grasp this concept of inner life, then you need to go and listen to someone else. Because only if a person can internalize this within their heart will they, with love, experience this pure feeling toward a pure person in prayer. And true life will begin at that moment. This is what the Vedas say. True life is always within. It's hard to explain. Its fruits do not manifest externally right away. But this is the only way to achieve external results. And even if a person desires happiness in this world, that happiness is fleeting. It is possible, attainable, but it ends with the death of this body. For instance, you might engage in spiritual practice to bring happiness to your family. You will achieve it. But eventually, you will have to leave that family. This world is not eternal. We are forced to part with everything we achieve here. Even from this perspective, a person should cultivate an inner life and remain calm toward external matters. There is happiness there too. There is happiness in family, in close relationships, in relationships with children, friends, and everyone. It is attainable through an inner life. Here's how it works. Let's say your husband is a scoundrel. Is this a common occurrence or not?
Not common.
A husband who is a bad person. Is this a common occurrence or not? Common or uncommon?
Uncommon.
A husband who doesn't understand me. Is this a common occurrence? Who would say this is uncommon? If you say that, then you have no reason to be here. You've already understood everything. Why are you even sitting here? My husband doesn't understand me. For Riga, this is normal.
He understands, but not always.
All right, let's be more precise. He understands, but not always. My husband understands me, but not always. We sit down, focus on holiness, and forget about the husband. This is not betrayal. This is the right path. God is above all. A holy person thinks about God. Personal relationships with such a person are not the same as relationships with a husband. These are different, purer relationships. A person of holiness prays, placing their mentor on the icon first. Then that holiness will descend closer. It will begin to manifest on earth. God will start to draw nearer to us. Eventually, it's possible to form such deep relationships not only with a mentor, but also to see holiness in someone who establishes such pure relationships with you. Even that becomes possible later, but at first it's distant. Someone on the icon can eventually become close. The journey starts like this. In the morning you pray, and then you notice that you see your husband or wife in a better light. You begin to realize all the good qualities they have. This is a sign that spiritual vision is awakening within you. When we focus on the good in others, we naturally bring out the good in them as well. For example, if I were to call someone's husband a scoundrel, it would mean I'm blind to the truth, unable to see that the women here, sitting in this room, know their husbands are good men. These are women who have come to this lecture, women with a sense of purity, but I fail to see that because I lack spiritual vision. A wise person, however, can see people for who they truly are, and because of that, they are always tactful. They know exactly what to say and say it at the right time. This is what holiness is about, and if I've prayed to a holy person, then I begin to reflect on their purity and can speak to others with a similar clarity. Even if I don't yet possess this purity myself, by connecting with it, I can begin to share something meaningful with others. That's how you know your life is improving. It becomes lighter and better. This is how fate changes when you connect with holiness. Even if you aren't inherently pure, your perspective shifts when you engage with it, and you start seeing the world through cleaner, clearer eyes. The next stage is this: while you begin to see the world more clearly, the world still throws dirt at you. You need to understand that seeing the good in the world means a connection has already been established. This isn't just theory. It's real interaction. It's a profound engagement with the deepest layers of your relationships. It's so deep that it might not even show on the surface. You must practice this for a long time, learning to see the purity in a person and forgiving their flaws. On your own, you cannot forgive. Forgiveness is a spiritual vision. It means seeing the good in someone. How do you forgive? You must see the good, and then forgiveness happens naturally. To achieve this, you must sincerely and deeply connect with the purity in others, especially in a holy person, and then learn to see with clear eyes when interacting with everyone else. The next stage is when you gain strength in this pure vision. This strength will compel your loved one to soften their behavior and stop mistreating you. They will start behaving more tactfully. You'll notice that the force they used to exert on your life becomes lighter and gentler. Then comes the next stage. They will accept your way of living. By this time, you're already praying and living a different kind of life. Your loved one will say to you, "It's okay, live the way you want." They will acknowledge that this kind of life is possible. So there are various stages, and they will ultimately lead to a very pure life together. This is inevitable, but it cannot be achieved solely through your own efforts. The Vedas explain that the soul holds a subordinate position in this world. It is subject to a higher power, and it acts according to the will of that higher power. And in doing so, it lives in true harmony. The energy of time has revealed all of this to me. Time brings everything in this world to a halt. By the grace of God, we still have a few minutes left. And now we will begin the practice together. We will repeat the phrase, "I wish everyone happiness." We'll do exactly what I've explained. Recall in your mind a holy person from your faith or culture, someone you recognize as pure. And now what do? We repeat the phrase, "I wish everyone happiness" on their behalf. The Vedas explain that a person can truly wish happiness for others only from a state of deep humility. That's why we should mentally bow to everyone sitting around us, and especially to the holy person, while repeating, "I wish everyone happiness" on their behalf. It is truly they who give happiness, and I simply want everyone to be happy. I want the holy person to give happiness to everyone. I want this because they are holy. I don't have such power. That's the mindset. Some may think, "I do have power. Why should I say this? Do it as an experiment." I'm offering this mindset because it leads to overcoming one's fate. This isn't my idea. It's described in sacred scriptures. Science is about experimentation. We're trying it out. If you're unwilling to try, it means you're biased and lack the strength to overcome your ego. Try it. I don't have power. Holiness does. When a person sees themselves as small and powerless, they gain tremendous strength over their fate. When they see themselves as cool, fate denies them power. Instead, it torments them. So sit upright to activate your inner strength. Another important point, during this practice, pay attention to what's happening in the room, to your voice, and to the voices of others. When a woman's voice comes from her heart, it becomes very clear and resonant. When a man's voice comes from his heart, it becomes very deep and strong. A voice from the heart changes fate. You'll notice that during this repetition, after about 5 minutes, you'll hear this sound of strength that truly touches the heart. It's an extraordinary feeling because the sound begins to resonate with your heart. This sound of faith and holiness. Now there are quite a lot of us here. Let's all repeat together. This sound can truly touch your heart deeply, and you will feel a profound emotion within. But don't relax and get lost in that feeling. You need to keep wishing everyone happiness and thinking about holiness. When a person relaxes into their happiness, they lose it. Service is the foundation. If you continue to serve, happiness will chase after you, grab hold of you, and make itself felt. When a person serves, happiness chases them. When a person chases happiness, it runs away. Do you understand? You can't coexist with happiness. Either you're running away from it, or it's running away from you. It's better to let happiness chase you because it will always catch up. Happiness runs faster. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much, and see you soon.